After years of waiting, Razer has finally released a new esports-focused PS5 controller. Meet the Raiju V3 Pro. And I've been testing it for the last few weeks. Let's dive in, shall we? Having reviewed the excellent Wolverine V3 Pro last year, the Raiju V3 Pro is essentially the PS5 version of this controller, but with a few extra little magical features that help it stand out from the competition. And trust me, it's got plenty of competition, but we'll dive into that a little bit later on. It also shares the same price as the Wolverine V3 Pro, coming in at £199.99 or $219.99. This puts it firmly in the premium elite range of PS5 and PC controllers. So for that price, what's included? Well, let's dive into the design and build quality, shall we? Now, the Raiju V3 Pro, of course, features the iconic PlayStation symmetrical thumbsticks, but instead of being Hall effect like the Wolverine V3 Pro, this controller features TMR or tunnel magneto-resistance thumbsticks. And that's important, very important, because if you thought Hall effect was good, TMR just trumps it in pretty much every single way. See, TMR is a modern upgrade that relies on something called quantum tunneling. Yeah, I don't know what it is either, but apparently works by sandwiching a thin layer between two magnetic layers. And when those magnets align, electrons zip through the barrier, creating a sharp, easily measurable change in resistance. Essentially, what you need to know is that they're more accurate and reliable. It's a win-win situation. As for the rest of the controller, you get the Mecha Tactile PBT action buttons, which are very, very much a mouse click sort of actuation. Spoiler alert, pretty much everything on this controller feels like a mouse click, but I'll go through that in more detail. You get the 8-way floating D-pad, which, yeah, listen to that. There's not another D-pad out there that sounds like that. Like, it sounds absolutely superb. And you also get all the buttons you'd expect from a PlayStation controller. So you get a PS button, you have the 2 buttons on the top right here, you have the mute mic button, and of course the record button right at the bottom here. The material used is very similar to that of the Wolverine V3 Pro in that it's a hard plastic on the front here. I don't know if you can hear that. And you also have these rubberized handles that feel actually really nice, but it's a very thin layer of rubber. When you pair this with its weight, which is just 258 grams, that's some 50 grams lighter than the Wolverine V3 Pro. The outcome is that it doesn't exactly feel ultra premium in the hand. It doesn't feel cheap in any sense of the word. I'm not saying that, but you have to keep in mind that this controller is made for esports professionals. So Razer's priority is keeping weight down rather than packing it full of premium heavy material. So I understand it's for esports pros and people looking for that extra bit of performance, but for the everyday gamer who's interested in buying this controller, it is important to mention that it doesn't feel ultra premium, obviously with the plastic and the weight of it. Just thought I'll let you know that, guys. Another thing to note is the USB-C port on the top, which for some reason has this plastic cover that protrudes over the top of it. Now, whether that's a design choice to prevent you from using other third-party cables or it's just a visual thing, I think it looks a bit ugly, to be honest, albeit it is a very small part of the device. Additionally, there's no RGB at all, which is very un-Razer-like. Razer, are you okay? Now, even the Wolverine V3 Pro had a green Razer logo. This just doesn't have any at all. So let's move on to the inputs in more detail then. So while the Wolverine V3 Pro came with the extra mouse click back buttons just like this one, Razer says that after taking on board some feedback about player preferences and accidental clicking, I must admit that was an issue for me as well, the Raiju V3 Pro instead features removable versions of these, with Razer giving you a cute little screwdriver to do this yourself so you can add them and remove them at your leisure. And it's honestly pretty easy. As someone who doesn't really use these back buttons, getting them off was a simple task. And you also still get the 2 claw buttons on the top at the top here, which are still of course programmable using Razer Synapse. As I said before, pretty much every button on this controller sounds and works like a clicky mouse would. So if I just go through, obviously you got the action buttons there, that sounds like that. You got the 2 buttons on the top, you got the D-pad, you've got the bumpers, they sound great. You got the 2 claw buttons on the top, also sound great. And then you've got the buttons on the back as well, which everything about this controller, even when you press the top button in like this, yeah, every button on it just feels so nice to use, so satisfying to use. And Razer aren't done there, because my absolute favorite feature of this controller are the triggers, which are of course adjustable between shorter and longer trigger pulls, but that's not the magic. No, the magic lies in the mechanism, because on most, if not all controllers I've tested, flicking the switch at the back here from longer travel to shorter travel just sort of adds a barrier to the mechanism to stop the trigger from going all the way down. But on the Raiju V3 Pro, flicking the same switch changes the trigger to a mouse click trigger. Yes, a mouse click trigger in the actual triggers, which feels and sounds amazing and is incredibly instant. So this is what it sounds like without it pressed, just a normal trigger with the long press. And then if you press these in like this, Yeah, they sound absolutely amazing, and it just helps sort of with that instant actuation effect that you get on pretty much every button on this controller. It's just such a nice controller to use day to day. If you love like clicky sounds like me, you're going to absolutely love this controller. You also get a nice carrying case with this controller, which includes 2 replaceable thumbstick caps, the 2.4 gigahertz wireless dongle, you get a 2-meter cable, and the toolkit for the back button removal. You also get some different back buttons as well, different sizes, which is just a really nice touch from Razer, so you can customize it however you'd like. Now, I've got the black version here, but it's also available in white and Razer green. I absolutely love the white one. I think it looks great, but the latter, the Razer green, actually costs £10 more, so it's completely up to you what you decide. In terms of design and build quality, I'm giving the Razer Raiju V3 Pro a 4.5 out of 5. Almost perfect, but the hard plastic just loses that little bit for me. I can't give it a perfect score, but 4.5 out of 5 is still very strong in terms of design and build quality. So let's move on to the features and performance then. So on the wireless performance, there's been a slight upgrade too, with the 2.4 gigahertz dongle allowing for a 250 hertz wireless polling rate when connected to PS5 and a 2000 wide polling rate when connected to PC, which is double that of the Wolverine V3 Pro. Then there's the battery life, which has been upgraded from 20 hours on the Wolverine V3 Pro to 36 hours with the Raiju V3 Pro, and in my testing, that number was remarkably accurate. I mean, almost doubling battery life is quite impressive, and perhaps the TMR joysticks have contributed to this improvement. Are you watching? Rest of the industry, Nintendo, Sony, Xbox, TMR thumbsticks, they're the way forward. Come on. Now, the joysticks themselves feel and perform superbly well, and you can genuinely feel that this controller is capable of finer, more accurate movement than the Wolverine V3 Pro, and certainly much better than Sony's own premium controller, the PS5 DualSense Edge, which doesn't even have Hall effect, for goodness sake. Now, the thumbsticks don't have the most resistance in them in the world, so if you're coming from a controller that has loads of resistance when you're playing around or movements, you might take a bit of getting used to, but for me, once I was used to them, they felt absolutely fantastic. And it's the same story with the triggers, which are at the perfect level of resistance in long trigger mode, and as I said, they feel ultra responsive in short trigger mode with that mouse click feel, which I just can't get over that. I think that sounds so good. This means whether you're playing a racing game like F125 or you're an FPS player playing Fortnite, Ark Raiders or Battlefield 6, this controller pulls out all the stops to help you get that extra little bit of performance. It's also superbly ergonomic, being slightly wider and chunkier than the standard PS5 DualSense, but it suited my hand size perfectly, as I prefer a slightly larger controller, and even so, every button is comfortably within reach when you're holding it. Then there are the software features, with the controller being pretty much infinitely customizable using Razer Synapse, which allows you to change the thumbstick sensitivity, you can adjust dead zones, you can change the button layout, and you can even calibrate your thumbsticks. Nowadays, honestly, there are very few companies that offer as much software customization as Razer, particularly on PC, so well done Razer, nice one. But that quest for ultimate performance does have its trade-offs. For example, there is zero haptic feedback or vibration whatsoever when using this controller. Now, some of that is due to PlayStation itself, probably, but Razer probably could have included some vibration if they wanted to, or maybe not, maybe their hands were tied, but it's still something that might turn off some gamers. So if you're looking for a controller with haptic feedback like the DualSense or really good vibration, maybe this isn't for you. But you'll be pleased to know that Razer's controller does feature a touchpad, which works just like a DualSense would. Nice. Now, in terms of features and performance then, again, very, very close to being perfect. Just the lack of vibration, the haptic feedback, you just lose that extra bit. And again, I understand it's a performance esports level controller, but for me, I can't give it perfect marks. It's a 4.5 out of 5 for me in terms of features and performance. So in our final section then, let's take a look at value for money and how this thing stacks up against the competition. So as I mentioned earlier, this controller comes in at £199.99 or $219.99. That means it comes at basically the same price as Sony's own DualSense Edge and slightly cheaper than the Scuf Reflex Pro. However, there are plenty of cheaper alternatives such as the Nikon Revolution 5 Pro, the Victrix Pro BFG, and of course the older Razer Wolverine V2 Pro if you want to go back to that version. So it is a very premium product, but none of the above have TMR joysticks, mouse click triggers, or mouse-like action buttons, making it a product with cutting-edge features, albeit it does have a price to match. Now, in terms of value for money then, I can't give it perfect perfect marks again just fall short just because it's so expensive and it's so premium. It's very much at the top of what you'd pay for an esports level controller. So I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. Overall though, the Razer Raiju V3 Pro is a superb PS5 and PC controller featuring killer cutting edge technology and features that help it genuinely stand out despite launching in a very competitive space. Now, it's not the nicest feeling controller in the world and it's not the cheapest and it certainly lacks haptics. However, if performance is what you're after, Razer's created what is probably the most accurate and tactile PS5 and PC controller on the market right now. I'm giving the Razer Raiju V3 Pro an overall score of 4.5 out of 5 for all out gaming. If you're looking to buy one of these, you've got some questions, please put them in the comments below and I'll try and get back to every single one of you. And if you like this video, please drop a like and get subscribed because we've got loads of really cool stuff coming up in the future and you're not going to want to miss it. Now that's all from me. I'll see you in the next one. I'm just going to go and play with these buttons. Oh, they feel so good.